welcome. Welcome to Blue Sunday. I'm with you. I'm Rash. The special guest, Mr. Peter Brown. You're with us from the start. And Vince, you there? We are live. Yeah, you're on mute. You got to take off your mute button. We are live. We are live. You can't hear me? Peter, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rash, but I think you've got to unmute Vince if you can.
Okay. Again, here we go. Unmute. I can't unmute. Their mic isn't connected. So, Vince, you need to take off your headphones. Take those off.
No, Vince is gone, Rash.
He's gone.
Oh, dear.
I'm filling in, obviously, for Joe. Joe's got some personal stuff that he's dealing with. So just bear with us today as we go through. We've got a special show today, Peter, and we'll wait for Vince to join us.
Yeah.
What we're going to do today is we're going to go through the All-Australian team. We're going to go through the games coming up for the finals and talk about the year that it was. So I'm just going to try and add Vince shortly.
Sure.
Well, we've got to wait for him to. Yeah, here we go. We'll get him in. I'm just having a look here. Vince has got technical issues. Last week it was me. This week it's Vince. Let me add him to the stream. Here we go. Yeah. Vince, you're on mute.
No, I don't think Vince is with us, somehow.
Yeah, he's on.
You there, Vince?
Vince, can you see us? I'll just put some comments on in the meantime.
Hallelujah. Yes. I'm in.
Finally.
What happened? Sorry, guys.
It's called bugs. It's called bugs. Me and technology and a lot of us just don't mix with something.
I don't know what happened, but my phone was muted. My camera went blink. I don't know what happened.
Let's just say your camera looks really good. So
I hope the quality of the shot this week's a lot better than it has been in previous weeks anyway.
Fantastic. Anyway, good evening, Vince. Good
evening, Brownie. Good evening, Rash. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Sorry about all those little glitches at the start there, but we'll hopefully be gaff-free for the rest of the show, shall we? Let's give it our best shot anyway.
Big hello to Joe. He's just sent us a nice big hello. Wishing him all the best, of course.
Yes, all the very best to Joe and his partner, who are, got some challenging times ahead there. We wish Joe's partner all the best with some health issues there. So, as we've said, all the best to her, and my thoughts and prayers are with them both.
Absolutely.
All of us. I think
one of the comments just come up there, Vince. He reckons that you're the quietest you've ever been for the start of the show.
Well, I'll try and make up for it for the last hour and a half to 2 hours of the show. Anyway, nice to see Alana and all of our regulars that tune in every week. It's great to have them as usual. The show wouldn't be the same without them. Happy Father's Day to you, A1R, whoever you are.
AIR.
Yes, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I had a lovely day today with my kids and also with my mum and dad. It was nice. Beautiful day. Gorgeous day today.
Fantastic. Good weather.
Paul Mentor, nice to see you as usual, joining us on a Sunday night. And Petra Khan, of course, how good is this feeling of being involved in finals? Yes. Well, we are a mere, 5 days away, Rash, till Friday night. So, we'll blink our eyes a couple of times and it'll be upon us. So let's hope that the boys can be at their absolute peak by Friday night. So we'll go over our
Joseph says keep Vince on mute.
We're going to put you on mute in the second.
Oh, okay, righto. I'll shut up then. I'll let you talk, Rash. Go on.
So Vince,
I think we should get some formalities out of the road, don't you?
Well, let's for starters mention who we're brought to you by.
Yes.
And, of course, this show every Sunday is brought to you by Joe Luzza's own company, which is called Retired Working for You Tours. And if you want to go to their website, it's RW, the number 4, and then the letter U, tours.com.au. And Joe will be more than happy to help any of you out there who are looking to go to Thailand and help organise a tour and all that sort of thing. They go to all parts of Thailand. There it is, rw4utours.com. Not .au. Did I say .au? Yeah, so there's no AU on the end, just .com. So if you go there, send Joe an inquiry. Even if you don't use his company to do the tours, he's more than happy to guide you as to where best to go. So, it's a terrific company. In fact, if you'd like to know a little bit more about what they do, I suggest everyone watch the Jumper Punch if you don't already, which you should already be doing every Tuesday night. And right at the end of the Jumper Punch show, there's a little segment there where Joe and his partner take you on a bit of a tour through certain parts of Thailand. So always worth watching that little 5-minute segment towards the end of the Jumper Punch. There you go, Joe. Now, if you had to put me on mute, I wouldn't have got all of that out and given you a big plug. So be grateful. Anyway, yes, thanks, Joe. No.au.
Yeah, no.au.
Yeah. rw4utours.com. There you go. Just make no mistake about that.
Hasn't lost his sense of humour.
No, not at all. All right, guys. Now, of course, we do welcome your participation if you're out there watching. So we'd love to get your comments, your opinions, your thoughts. If you've got a gripe, by all means, you can share that with us as well. If you have a question for any of us to answer, we welcome your questions. You can pose anything you like. We're happy to debate and discuss anything that's relevant to the show. Don't forget, we welcome you to like, share, and subscribe using, of course, the Facebook page Blue Sunday. And that's where you can make your comments if you like, and you can watch the show via that Facebook page, or you can go directly to our YouTube channel, which is, of course, the Jumper Punch channel, and look at their live shows, and we are one of those. So go to Blue Sunday, and you can watch us there, and you can leave your comments and questions there. And Rash will be busily sifting through the comments all night and putting up the ones that he thinks are most relevant, and questions that he thinks that all of us are liable to answer. So what have we got here? Grant Richards, 100,000 supporters Friday night. Well, that'd be good, wouldn't it, Grant? There wouldn't be any Sydney Swans people in there at all if that was the case. It'd probably be, I think it's a sellout in terms of public ticketing. So I don't know if all of the tickets will be used, but I reckon a good 85,000 will get there on Friday night. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it is going to be a very, very good crowd there. I think Carlton supporters being starved of any finals participation in the last 10 to 12 years, I think we'll be looking forward to getting out in numbers. I would suspect that the weather is going to be half reasonable, given the fact that we're now coming into spring. Hopefully there's not... hopefully there's no inclement weather, and our supporters can get along and enjoy the evening.
Indeed. And as I said last week, the date of this final is on the exact 10-year anniversary of when we last won a final, which is the 8th of September back in 2013 when we beat Richmond on that Sunday afternoon, the 8th of September, which happened to be Chris Judd's 30th birthday that day. And he kicked pretty much the sealer for the game. And now we can celebrate his 40th, hopefully with a win over the Sydney Swans. Anyway, so we will discuss that game a bit more at length. In fact, we're going to preview all 4 finals tonight. We'll do the other 3 first, and then we'll do the Carlton final in far more depth, of course, and we'll leave that one till last. But a couple of other things that happened during the week was, of course, yesterday the AFLW team got off to a winning start, and I think we've got the screenshot up there, Rash, where the score is for everyone to see. Carlton did get a pretty decent lead up at three-quarter time and scored the first goal of the last quarter. But then the Gold Coast Suns came at them hard and scored, in fact, the last 6 scoring shots of the game, which happened to be 3-3, but they just fell short. Carlton 5-4-34 to the Gold Coast Suns 4-8-32. All that really matters is that they won. Probably lucky to fall in. I think one of our viewers there just said lucky, but nevertheless, they did enough to hold that lead. And there was a good, I think, 3 or 4 minutes at the end there that they had to defend that 2-point lead, and they managed to do so with some pretty good tackling and good pressure sort of football in defence. So good on the girls. They're off to a winning start for season 2023, and that'll give them a big boost in confidence as they rebuild this team with a whole new coaching panel. And in fact, not only the senior coach was replaced, but also the football manager. So the whole women's program has been revamped a bit. So let's hope that they improve this year.
All right.
Did either of you guys watch the game?
No, I didn't see it. I wasn't home. So yeah.
Well, at one stage it was 34-11. And it was looking like Carlton by how much. But credit to the Gold Coast Suns, they did come back hard in that last quarter and almost pinched it. But nevertheless, you've only got to be in front when the final siren sounds, don't you?
Absolutely.
As Collingwood found out in the 1979 grand final. Isn't that right, Brownie?
That's exactly right.
All right.
As long as you've got the points up and the siren goes, it doesn't matter whether it's by 10 goals or whether it's by 1 point.
My word. And, of course, Rash, we had the All-Australian team announced last week, and I think you've got
I'm going to put that up, but before we can put that up, can we just show just this little meme by...
yes, of course. How can we let the show keep going without Joe's meme of the week? He'd probably start ringing in or writing nasty messages to me shortly if I didn't put this up. He does enjoy putting up his memes of the week. So here's one. Why you shouldn't wait until retirement to start travelling. I've got a feeling that gondolier is looking a bit bored with that elderly couple falling asleep on the gondola ride. You wouldn't be doing that sort of thing, would you, Brownie?
If
you went to Venice?
Starting to take its toll, mate. Get home from work now, and about 6 o'clock, it's in the chair watching the news and...
and then all of a sudden the head drops down and
absolutely
the sleep apnea machine starts to work, does it?
Exactly.
All right.
Hey, Vince, can we show the All-Australian team? Can I show that?
Yes, of course. That's what I was going to do next. Yes. Let's have a look at that All-Australian team. We had, of course, 3 players in the squad of 44, being Patrick Cripps, Charlie Curnow and Jacob Wiedering. And only the one player from Carlton managed to make it into the top 22. And as a matter of fact, Brownie, I did wonder, seeing that these days we have to choose a sub for every game, I wonder why they didn't choose a 23rd player and make them the sub. But anyway.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I guess maybe Patrick Cripps and Jacob Wiedering can consider themselves a little unlucky not to make it, especially considering their second half of this season. I think that's maybe why they left them out, because I think there was that patch there where we were losing games week after week when both of them were pretty much out of form as much as any of the other players in our team.
Well, I think
probably only Chera and Curnow were the ones who were probably playing well enough to hold their heads high at that time, but I think that period probably cost them a spot in the team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Wiedering was a little bit unlucky. I thought Wiedering's particularly more so in the last 10 to 12 weeks has been quite good. Curnow definitely deserved a position. I was a little surprised that they actually included Cripps in that squad, actually, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I just didn't think that his form early warranted it. I must admit, that did raise my eyebrows was the first ruck English from the Doggies has put out Marshall. I thought Marshall's been in outstanding form all year. And he's virtually shouldered all of the workload with St Kilda, and even when they were losing, he was still playing very well. So I was very surprised with that inclusion in the first ruck with English. So, yeah, I had a question mark over that. The rest of them, definitely the players that have been selected are the players that deserve to be selected, just on a 12-month form more than anything else.
There's a comment here about Tom Stewart. If you could see that, I mean, I think Wieders was pretty stiff not to get in, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Stewart's form early was better though.
But is Stewart taking Wiedering's spot in that side, or is it more like Wilkie from St Kilda, or Darcy
Wilkie.
Moore from Collingwood? I mean, which position would you have given Wiedering, full back or centre half back?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Full back.
I think full back, although his form of recent times, he's been coming up the ground a little bit further with the intercept marking and stuff like that. His work between full back and centre half back has probably been where he's best suited. And I was critical earlier in the season about the fact that he panicked, or he started to panic when it was right back on the goal line. And when he was too far up the ground, he was getting sucked under the ball, and what was happening was that he was getting caught out of position. And I think that position between fullback and centre halfback was probably around about where he should be, and that's a bit similar to where Stewart plays. And he actually starts to springboard off that area there. You could argue. Wilkie's had a pretty good year at fullback. Whether he's All-Australian, don't know.
There's a big call. I'll tell you the other fullback that I thought was stiff to miss out, apart from Wiedering, and that's Harris Andrews from Brisbane. I actually thought he might have been the one that got that spot. So when I saw Wilkie there, that surprised me. That made me raise my eyebrows.
Yeah, I agree.
Petra's probably making a good point here that Wiedering is not consistent enough over the whole season. Second half of the year was superb, yes, but probably the first 10 or 11 games pretty substandard for him.
Yeah, it wasn't up to scratch. And
from that point of view, that's what you're saying, that you think that maybe Cripps and even maybe Wiedering were lucky to even make the squad. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely Cripps. Wiedering, I would give him the opportunity of making the squad, but I definitely raised my eyebrows when they put Cripps into it. I thought he didn't deserve of. I thought there were better players around, more consistent players over the full season, and I think the one guy that I would like to congratulate is Toby Green. I think that was a wonderful accolade for his year, for his discipline.
You mean to get the captaincy as well as being in the forward pocket? Yeah.
Absolutely, well deserving. And he's now taken his game, and particularly more so his leadership, to the next level. Everyone was fairly critical of him when he was actually afforded the captaincy, but by geez, I defy anybody this year to suggest that anybody out there as a captain is more deserving than Toby Green. So, congratulations to Toby. I thought it was wonderful.
Were there any other players in that team that you were a bit surprised got the final gig?
Charlie Cameron's too inconsistent for mine.
Really?
He's explosive, yes, but is he really deserving of a Guernsey in the All-Australian? I'm not so sure. I'd be looking for more consistent.
Is there a more dangerous is there a more dangerous and productive forward, though, small forward that would deserve that spot ahead of him? Can you think of one? Because he has kicked something like 50-odd goals, I think, for the season, hasn't he?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm not 100% sure how many he's got either, but I think you'll find he's kicked a fair swag of goals.
Okay, well, I might stand corrected.
Admittedly in a very good team, but nevertheless, you know.
Well, I can be staying, as I said, I can be stood corrected if anybody would like to have a crack. I'm quite happy to do that. I mean, obviously.
By the way, he's kicked. Yeah, Charlie Cameron has kicked 53 goals, which is equal fourth, together with Jeremy Cameron, who kicked 53, and Oscar Allen kicked 53. And he's kicked 2 more than his teammate Joe Danaher, who's on 51. And the only players ahead of them are Toby Green on 60, Nick Larkey 71, Taylor Walker on 76, and Charlie Curnow on 78. So Charlie Curnow got full forward. Taylor Walker, who only kicked 2 goals less than him, got centre-half forward. Nick Larkey was named on the bench. And Toby Green was named in the forward pocket. So all of the best goal kickers the top 4 goal kickers, if you like, have all got a gig in this team. And then Charlie Cameron as well has got the small forwards gig, because no one else other than him and Toby Green scored more goals as small forwards.
Yeah, you could probably argue that you could have had Cameron as an interchange or something, and you could have had someone else. I mean, don't forget Jeremy Cameron.
Luke Bruce, for example, kicked 47 from Hawthorn. Yeah, well, he could have got the small forward.
Well, and he, quite rightly, he could. I mean, he crumbs very well as a small forward. I mean, he's been outstanding for Hawthorn this year, actually. The thing that I would like to see is actually Walker and Curnow changed. I'd put Curnow at centre-half forward and put Walker in the square. I think that'd be more dangerous than having Tex out at centre-half forward.
Isn't it a shame that we're never actually going to see this team play a game of football?
Can I just say, I think who was unlucky in this All-Australian, just one player, I think Libba. Yeah. I think Libba had a good season. So
Tom Liberatore, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people felt that he probably should have got a gig ahead of Zach Merritt from Essendon.
Yeah.
Or maybe Caleb Sarong from Fremantle, because he did certainly play at a very elite level.
Can I ask, do you think, Brownie, like with Carlton only having one player, is that a reflection that we're perhaps a better team, that it's more even, or that's just, what do you think?
I think it's more reflective on the fact of the season proper, and our early form didn't warrant any of our players to even be close. And it's only been the second half of the season that we've actually showed some real go in the side. And I just think that this is probably reflective of the full 12 months. I mean, Sicily's been outstanding all year. He's been exceptional. Darcy Moore's, basically all of the year's work has been good. Stewart's has been good. Bontempelli, you couldn't suggest that he wasn't worth.
He might win the Brownlow the way he's going.
Well, that's right. Rosie and Butters, that is, I mean, they deserve that. Those places,
no doubt.
Those two guys have been outstanding. Petrarca's he's probably been more consistent in the second half of the season than what he has in the early part of the season.
Yeah.
Look, Dawson from Adelaide has been good. He's been a good leader for how many captains are in amongst that? There's
I was just going to say, I thought Dawson had an outstanding season.
3, 4.
Captains, I can tell you. Well, Sicily's the captain of Hawthorn.
Zach Merritt.
Yeah, Sicily's the captain of Hawthorn. Darcy Moore's the captain of Collingwood. You've got Bontempelli's the captain of the Bulldogs. Not Taylor Walker, no. Toby Green's captain of GWS.
And Dawson.
Who else have we got?
Dawson
from Adelaide, and Merritt from Essendon. So you've got 6. Yeah, it's quite a lot, isn't it? Quite a lot of captains.
6 captains. where you'd think that there would be some good leadership on that ground if they were playing against their side, wouldn't you?
My word.
Anyway, look, it's like everything else, isn't it? It's fairly subjective. I mean,
it is subjective.
Everyone's got an opinion on it. Some people could feel aggrieved that they didn't have one of their players from one of their sides in and stuff like that. But I mean, if this was actually tested, would it work? Who knows? Look, congratulations to all those players. They've had pretty good years, and you can't deny that the AFL talent on show in the All Australian side, and they've got the Guernsey, the other guys that missed out in the squad. Well,
did you think that Tim English deserved his spot ahead of Marshall or ahead of Max Gawn and Ruckman like that?
I'd picked Marshall early in the year as being probably the standout ruckman in the
I thought Marshall was very stiff not to be the ruckman.
Yeah. No,
the other thing is, what about the two Dacos boys? Did you think they both deserved a spot in the starting 18? In fact, two of them in the 18.
Yeah, look, that's an amazing achievement given the fact that is that the first time that two brothers have been selected?
Probably
in the All Australian.
I'm not sure. You'd have to go back to the Dannahers to find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's Collingwood. We don't really care about Collingwood.
No, but we're just discussing the All Australian team.
I know, but they're Collingwood. But one point that there's been a lot of comments about is about Nick Newman, which we all pretty much, he's had a great season. He would take the 40. But let's move on. Let's move on if we can.
I'll tell you, can I just before we do move on, there was one more player I wanted to mention, and it is a Carlton player. And I think he was very stiff to get injured when he did, because I dare say if he wasn't injured for those 4 or 5 games that he's missed, he should have also been at least in the squad of 44, and that's Adam Chera. I am baffled as to how he didn't get a gig at least in the best 44. But anyway, they decided to put Cripps in there. But I thought Adam Chera's had a far more consistent year than Cripps.
Yes, I agree totally.
All right. Now, let's quickly start previewing these other finals. We don't have the teams, we don't have the squads as yet, but we do know how they've been playing, and we don't know what their lead-up form's been like. So I guess we've all got a bit of a feel as to who we think will win and why. So we'll start off with you, Brownie. Collingwood and Melbourne this Thursday night at the MCG, 7:20 p.m. Should be an absolute massive crowd. I'd be very surprised if this one didn't get to 90,000 plus.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure. The last time they played might have been, I think, 1989.
Yeah. Look, there's a couple of things that come into play here. Tonight on the news, it's been announced that Nick Dacos won't be playing, so obviously that's been discounted.
Right.
There's a big question mark over Melbourne's forward line and the way that these guys are coming in, whether they're injured or not. You've got Melcham, who's a big loss to that forward line. He was the one that was on fire early for him, and he's got his knee, so he's going to miss that.
And that's after having lost. Harrison Petty a couple of weeks earlier. So, and he was on fire at the time. I think he kicked 6 goals in his previous match before doing that knee. Yeah,
correct.
So that's 2 very heavy losses that they can ill afford in their forward line.
I'm just. They're a little bit coy, Melbourne. They've been under the radar a bit of this last week. There hasn't been too much, information being brought out, or we haven't seen very much of the media stuff on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Melbourne do something stupid and bring Grundy into it.
Really?
No, I reckon he's checked out, Grundy, but he's checked out. That's what
I would have thought that they would have. Look, Tom McDonald kicked 5 goals in the VFL, I think the week before this week. I don't believe he played in the Casey Demons final yesterday, which they lost, by the way, so they're out of the VFL.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe he played in that game. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who might have watched it. So I think that they've saved Tom McDonald for the big match on Thursday night, and probably even Ben Brown.
Right.
Grundy is as good as gone, says Peter V. Bluebagger. Well, maybe. Look, I don't blame Grundy for saying, "Look, I should be a number one ruckman somewhere. Wherever I play, I should be the number one ruckman. If you've already got Max Gawn as your number one ruck and you prefer him, then let me go somewhere else." I think he'll be traded by the end of the year. I don't see them playing Grundy. I don't think they're a balanced team when he plays.
Well, don't forget there's Collingwood players coming into this game as well off injuries, so they're going to be a bit rusty for a starter, I would imagine. I think you're right, Vince. I think there'll be a massive crowd there. For mine, I think Collingwood will win the game, but I don't think it's going to be on their terms. I think they'll just fall in against them. I think Melbourne's back line is going to really and truly test the Collingwood forward line, particularly May and Lever and Rivers and these guys. I think they're going to be key to it. The midfield, I think that the matchup between probably Petrarca and De Goey, I think that'll be an interesting matchup. You won't have any Dacos there. Adams will probably be more of a nullifier more than anything else. But I think if I had to give a critique on it, I think Melbourne's midfield might be just slightly better than Collingwood's. But I think Collingwood's ability to be able to springboard off half back is going to be really important for their thrust forward. Now, Melbourne also attack off their back line, but, coming forward, they're going to get as far as the centre, but are they going to get any further? I mean, Fritz is going to have to be a really important role in their forward line to be able to take advantage of it. So I'm tipping Collingwood to win that one.
Vince,
okay. Well, I'm finding it really hard to tip a winner for this. I think it's going to be a cliffhanger. I think it'll be a real nail biter. Could go either way. I think so long as whoever they bring in at full forward does his role and performs to a certain minimum requirement, I think Melbourne can win. I think their defence is the key to their game, and their midfield, I think, has got a slight edge on Collingwood's, especially without Nick Dacos there. So I think Oliver's now back in form. He's played a good couple of games now, and that frees up Petrarca to play forward. Fritz back is a big bonus. As we saw in that final game, he is a goal kicker, so he needs to kick a few goals. But their defence with May and Lever and other players like Rivers and Bowie and all these guys, they all know what their role is, and they've probably been the most well-drilled side defensively that I've seen this season. And I think that's what's going to hold them up on Thursday night. So I think it'll be very, very close, but I'm tipping Melbourne by 8 points.
All right, and I'm tipping that Melbourne will win, and then it's going to be Carlton versus Collingwood. So let's move on to the next game after that.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's if Carlton wins. We get a Carlton versus Collingwood final for the first time in 35 years, if that happens.
All right, let's be this is the next game, Elimination Final 2. Just your picks on, what do you think? I mean, who do you...
For me, it's going to be the Giants. They're coming in with a wet sail, and they've got absolutely nothing to lose. The Giants, they got everything to play for. They've you made the point, I think, last week, Vince, at one stage that there was a thought in and around that the Giants list and the talent that they had on their list was underperforming under Cameron. And I think what's happened is that Kingsley's definitely straightened them up, and they're now playing with full purpose, all Australian captain. So he's going to go out there and he will make sure that his players are performing to the level. And it's interesting with Toby, He doesn't ask his players to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. And I think you would find that the Giants in their preparation, particularly more so coming off the wins that they've had, are coming home with a wet sail. And I didn't make the point last week, but, the Giants have got a real feel about how the Doggies were in 16. They're coming in with red-hot form. They've got bugger all injuries. They're playing a brand of football that excites everybody. And this is going to be a real test for Ross and his boys because and the question mark's going to be, will Ross go defensive or will he keep on attacking? Because they've been criticised this year about being, on occasions, too defensive in some of their games. And they came out a week or so ago and, kicked something like 20-odd goals. But I just still think that the Giants, they're full of confidence and they have some self-belief that they can knock St Kilda off. So Giants for mine, and I reckon they'll do it by probably 15 to 20 points.
Vince?
Yes, and I think they're going to be looking forward to having Sam Taylor, one of the best defenders in the competition, coming back into their lineup. He was a late withdrawal from the side that actually beat us last week. So that can only strengthen their defence even more. That's number 15, Sam Taylor. So I agree with you, Brownie. I think the Giants are on a roll. I think St Kilda, while they've done really well this season to even finish in the finals, and I think credit to Ross Lyon and the coaching team there, that they've managed to get them to, I guess, win enough games to make the finals, especially those early weeks. It just goes to show you when you've banked a few wins early in the season, it can make all the difference between making the finals and slipping out of the finals at the end. So I think that's probably what helped them in the end. But look, they've done well to get there. It is at the MCG, and it should be a great game on the Saturday afternoon. But I think you're right. The Giants have got the momentum, the belief, and they've certainly got the playing list to win that final and go through to the next week and play the loser of Brisbane and Port Adelaide,
which is the next game. My pick's the Giants.
Yep.
So,
and by the way, I'm going to tip the Giants by 21 points. What do you think, Rash?
I reckon the Giants should win. It's going to be a close one. I reckon, but like Brownie, 15 to 20 points. Let's go to the next game just quickly on this one, because I know we've got a jam-packed show. So if we can just go through this quickly, guys. Just tell me about the Lions versus Port Adelaide.
Yeah, okay. The Lions up at the Gabba, I mean, they've got a fairly good record up there, although last week...
Fairly good? They've only lost 3 out of the last 33 games they've played there, Brownie. They've only lost a game there in 2 years.
Even when they turn the lights off. Look, I think going into this game, the Lions have got a lot to lose. Port Adelaide have got everything to gain. However, it's a fairly tough ask to go to Queensland and actually play in humidity getting towards the end of the season. The legs are probably a little bit tired. I mean, I know they've had a week to freshen up and stuff like that, but, all those little nigglies and stuff like that, I think will still play a part. I believe that Big Charlie's not playing either. They reckon that he's not going to suit up. Is that still right?
What do you mean? Charlie Dixon, you mean? Because there's that many Charlies. You've got Charlie Curnow, Charlie Cameron for Brisbane, Charlie Dixon for Port Adelaide. Yeah, Charlie Dixon's always... Well, he's been missing for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Well, I reckon he's not going to play. So, I mean...
That'll be a big blow for them.
Yeah, fairly important. No, look, I think the Lions are they've done enough to suggest that, firstly, they deserve the home final, but secondly, I think they've done enough to stay in the in amongst that top 3, and I think the Lions will win the game. Port Adelaide will scrap to the end like they usually do. I mean, they've got 2 Australians in there, Rosie and Butters. I mean, all Australians. So they're going to be playing fairly hard and fast, but I think the Lions will win it, and they'll win it probably by about 25 to 30, I reckon.
25 to 30 points. Yeah, look, I don't underestimate Port Adelaide. They've been an excellent team this year. I mean, they didn't even finish in the finals last year, disappointingly for their fans after playing in the finals the year before. But they're back in the top four again. They did relinquish that second spot on the ladder with those losses that they had, which tipped them out of the top two, and they've paid the price. Now they're going to have to travel to the Gabba and play Brisbane there. If it had been the other way around, I would have given them a far better chance of knocking off Brisbane. But at the Gabba, I just can't. I can't do it. There's no justification for tipping against Brisbane. And their forward line's functioning beautifully, and I do really like their midfield. Lockie Neal, he's another one who I cannot believe did not make the All-Australian team. That's just, almost, well, what can I say? I was flabbergasted when Lockie Neal didn't get into the All-Australian side. But he's got plenty of mates around him too, McCluggage and Dunkley, who came across from the Bulldogs. So I think the Lions midfield will shape up against the Port Adelaide midfield, which isn't to be underestimated. As you said, Brownie, they've got Butters and Rosie in there, but they've also got Brownlow medalist Ollie Wines and a few others in there as well. So they'll certainly get some opposition from Port Adelaide, but I think that the Lions forward line should function well with Danaher and what's his name? The number 30.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to think of his name.
Yeah.
Do you know the one I'm thinking of?
Hipwood.
His name escapes me at the moment. I can't. I'm happy to see this moment.
Hipwood.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. The tall timbers up there in their forward line, they should kick goals. And Charlie Cameron is a brilliant crummer around that forward line. So I think the Lions, not by a whole heap, because I don't think they've been in brilliant form lately, but I'll go for them by 15 points.
And there's one that you didn't mention, Vince, which was McInerney. He's really important to that side.
Yes, in the ruck, yeah.
He looks the most ungainly footballer of all time, but he's very effective. He's all arms and legs. He's like the big praying mantis, but he's really, really important for them to get their first opportunity, particularly more so in the clearances and stuff like that. So Anyway.
Darren Thomas has sent us a comment that's also relevant. Pal Pepper, he's a player to watch, certainly for Port Adelaide. He is an excitement machine. He's a bit of a barometer for them, actually. When he really turns it on, they normally win. He's one to be watched by the Brisbane defence, that's for sure. But I think if anything's been a bit of a weakness for Port Adelaide this year, it has been their defence. And the Lions... conversely, their forward line is brilliant. They very rarely don't score 100 points at the Gabba. So if you can't keep them down to 100 points, you're probably going to lose the match more times than not. So, I think the Lions will have the edge there at the Gabba and give themselves a week's rest and then play at the Gabba again in a prelim final. And that's who we'll probably be up against if we make it that far.
Excellent. Well, I'm picking the Lions again, but just bear in mind that I think Port Adelaide beat them this year. So
that was in Adelaide. That was in Adelaide. That was round one, I think you'll find.
Oh, round one, yeah. That's correct. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go to our game. Oh, there's a couple of hellos here. Let me just
yes.
I'll put this comment there.
Oh, it's not the Prime Minister again, is it? Tell him I'm busy.
It's Tony Amedio, and I have a big hello from Isam Jude also. So
very good.
I'll hide that. Let's go to our game, guys. This is what.
Listen, if it is the Prime Minister, can you tell him I'm not going to switch my vote. I'm voting no. Full stop.
Let's go to our game, guys. This is what everyone's waiting for.
All right.
So, tell us where it is, what we're doing, Vince.
I think I agree with you, Vince. I think there'll be 90,000 people at this, and there'll be probably 85,000 of those will be Carlton supporters.
Yeah,
However,
exactly.
let's not discount and I don't mean any disrespect to the Sydney nor the South Melbourne supporters of old. I'm pretty sure that they would love to get along and support their side. The one thing that concerns me about going into this game is that Sydney has experience in finals underneath their belt. Carlton are going in as virgins, if you want to call it that, mostly, because we certainly don't have that experience. That doesn't mean that we're not going to go in there with the right sort of attitude and stuff like that. This game's going to be interesting. It's going to be won and lost through midfield and forward line. Sydney's back line, whilst it has been flying under the radar, you've got Rampy and you've got Blakey and you've got these sort of guys back there that are doing a job. McCartan and these guys, depending on how we line up with our forward line as to how they're going to match up with them. Their forward line, Heaney's the big, he's the key to their forward line. There's no doubt about that. And then, of course, you got Papley. Now, Papley was rested a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. So to try and freshen him up for this particular game. And I would suspect that Sydney's going to scrap like hell to get through towards what they believe is a better opportunity than what they showed last year when they were humiliated against Geelong in the final. So I think they'd be wanting to really sadly or really strongly make amends for their performance last year. Now, you know, Sydney's been a side that's been under the radar a bit coming into this final series. I mean, you made the point, Vince, that, 10 weeks ago they were sitting 15th or 16th on the ladder. Along with ourselves and
GWS.
And they were able to find some form, obviously, along with us and GWS, and Sydney have come home, although they did stumble against Melbourne. I wouldn't read a great deal into the loss against Melbourne. I think that Sydney will show a better showing of themselves against Carlton. Having said that, the really important thing here is that, and this is what I'm struggling with a little bit here, guys, it's like the old story, and I said this to you, Vince, a week ago. You go into attack, you turn the ball over, it's cost you 6 points. It goes down the other end, they score, it's a 12-point turnaround. It's very similar going into a final series. If you're coming off a loss, it means you've got a 12-point turnaround to try and get back on even keel again, so that going into a game and in the right sort of mindset. Something interesting I did pick up, I don't know whether you guys picked it up during the week, but there was a little incident with Pitnet and Kennedy at training. How wonderful is that? That is just magnificent.
We haven't seen any of that since Satantara Helpin gave Cameron Cloak a kick up the backside at training one day.
But that just shows you then sorry, mate.
That's a really good thing. Like being a bit more aggressive.
Absolutely. That tells me that they're actually switched on and everyone's fighting for that position. Now, I said some weeks ago that competitive tension amongst players is really good going into a finals series where you've got people scrapping for positions on the ground. Now, Pitnet knows that he's a big man. He's got to start showing some authority. And even Cripps came out and made some comments in the media about the fact that it was good to see that big fella actually have a bit of a crack. He's not the mild, meek man that everyone thinks he is. So I think this is something that is really encouraging. It warms my heart to see that guys are going into this series hungry. The interesting thing for me is that I want to see how Walsh comes up after his run last time, which wasn't flash, but it was enough to give him a gallop. Still a big question mark over McGovern. I still don't think that he's going to win or lose the game for us. Harry Mackay's an interesting. This is an interesting kettle of fish here. I think Mackay, if it was me, I would start Mackay on the bench and bring him in as an impact rather than start him on the ground.
Really?
I think what we would like to do is that we would, and you asked me to put a side together before.
Yeah, well, I was going to go through those very shortly, yeah.
Okay. Well, the side that I put together, which you can go through if you want.
I can go through it now if you want, yeah.
Oh, well, no, I was just going to make the point that I was going to go reasonably small with the forward line and go with pace and that sort of thing, rather than have the two big talls, going in and being in a situation where they were getting in each other's road. Because what Sydney will do is that they'll will lock it down as quick as look at you.
As a matter of fact, what you had was that you would put Charlie Curnow up at centre half forward, and you put the Conning at full forward, and Pitnet in the ruck, and Mackay on the bench.
Yep.
And McGovern on the bench.
Yep. Absolutely.
You put Wiedering at centre half back and Kemp at full back.
Yep.
Interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us, Vince? I mean, we've got some question here. Will Kennedy get into the team? So tell us who you got in your team.
Well, do you want to go through the sides?
Do you want me to go through them, Brownie?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Well, these are the teams that we provided today, so we'll go through them here. Brownie's best 23 against Sydney is as follows. Unfortunately, we don't have any slides to put up here.
Let me see.
But hopefully our viewers can take this in. So his back line, Marchbank, Kemp, and Sard. Halfbacks, Fisher, Wiedering, and Newman. Centre line, Akers, Cripps, and Walsh. Half forwards are Doherty. I thought that was an interesting choice at half forward. Maybe you can give us a little explanation of that decision. Yep. Charlie Curnow at centre half forward and Owies. Forward line, Motlop, DeConning, and Hollands. There's another interesting positional change. Hollands in a forward pocket rather than on the wing. Followers are Pitnet, Hewitt, and Chera is the rover. Interchange Mackay, Dow, McGovern, and Cottrell. And there's a real red herring here as your sub, Brownie, and it's Lewis Young.
Yep.
So if I can ask you to just explain 3 or 4 of those choices, could I ask you to explain Doherty at half forward flank, Hollands in a forward pocket, and let's just say Young, Lewis Young as your sub, ahead of lots of other players that are probably currently in the list.
Okay. Well,
currently not in the list, in the team at the moment. They played the last game.
Right. Well, Doherty, I would rotate between half forward flank and into the middle. So I would have him rotating through there. And then I could then have Chera going back to half forward and Doherty rotating through there. The reason why I picked Hollands in the pocket was that I was actually looking for a contest in Crum. And his tackling ability to be able to lock the ball in, I think would be vital in amongst the forward line and locking down the contested ball and getting stoppages inside 50. So that's the reason why I went there. I went to Conning at full forward, purely and simply because he will actually have a contest there, and then you could rotate Pitnet, DeConning, and then you could also rotate Harry through there as an impact.
So in other words, at times you'll take Pitnet off after he's had a bit of a go at the ruck and put DeConning in there after having played at full forward, and then you'll bring Mackay onto the ground and Mackay can play full forward.
Absolutely.
While Pitnet has a rest. Okay.
Correct. And similar situation in the middle where I had Dow sitting on the interchange bench, and I reckon that he would be able to rotate through with Hewitt through the middle of the ground. I went on my half back line. The reason why I had Wiedering at centre half back was that I wanted Wiedering to be able to do the intercept marking, particularly in and around there. Bear in mind also, guys, that the MCG is a big ground. It's not like the Sydney Cricket Ground. This is going to be a real test of running ability and be able to get your stoppages, particularly more so in and around your forward line. So that was where I was looking for the contest for the smalls in amongst there. And also that gives us the ability to hit up players, particularly more so coming through the centre of the ground, whether it be Charlie. I didn't even have Martin in amongst the side.
I was just going to say, Martin was left out of the side.
Yeah,
amongst a few others.
I didn't like his last game, and I thought, well, whilst he has straightened the forward line up a little bit, he just doesn't look like he's fit enough, or something's wrong, I think, somewhere on the line. I don't know whether he's not, because his last game, he just didn't seem engaged, and as a result, I can't afford to take passengers into a final. Now, Akers is going to come up, it looks like, with his shoulder, and he works particularly hard backwards and forwards. You've also got the ability to have Walsh coming through the middle as well. Now, on my half-back line, I didn't finish that. I have got Fisher on one half-back, and I reckon that I would throw Newman onto Papley, lighten him down, and I'll have Kemp and Sard coming through from right in the last line of defence to be able to come in and attack through half-back. So
who plays on a guy like Isaac Heaney, for example? Who would you put on him?
Heaney, I'll give a big job to Kemp on Heaney.
Yep. I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
I reckon Kemp's got the ability to be able to shut him down. He's a clever player, Heaney. But
so are they the two key matchups in their forward line? So Newman on Papley and Kemp on Heaney. They're the two danger players, you would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting choices. Even Cunningham didn't make your final squad there, I noticed.
No.
Interesting. It'll be very interesting to get our viewers expressing their opinions on this. Chincotta was another one I think you left out.
Yeah, Chincotta has been he's been poor in the last couple of weeks. In fact, last game we were pretty critical of him. He wasn't doing enough. Cottrell I did keep in the side, even though he was on the bench, because what I would do is I'd rotate him through a wing and then let him to run into forward. And the reason why I've selected the side I've selected is because I've got some flexibility there and some players in terms of where they can and where they can't play, even to the point where you had a big question mark over the sub.
The sub? You mean Lewis Young?
Lewis Young, sorry. Yeah, Lewis Young. I had him in there only.
It's a really interesting choice of yours. He hasn't played senior football for probably 3 months.
Yep.
Or close to it.
And I reckon I could use him rotating through, as a substitute for Marchbank or one of the backmen in that scenario. So that's the reason why I threw it in there. I threw it in there because I thought, well, that gives me flexibility right across the ground. I threw Motlop in a pocket, and I think that Motlop would still be able to give us some run through the forward pocket area there. And I've got Owies as a hit up as well as Charlie, and then I've got Doherty who's the workhorse that could rotate through the middle.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, eh? Boyd got suspended. He was in the team. He got suspended for 3 weeks. In came Fisher and has played reasonably well for at least two out of those 3 weeks, and he's kept him out of the side. So not even a Boyd gets a look in your team.
No, it does not.
Okay.
What about
timing
Kennedy,
is everything,
Brownie? A lot of comments about
Absolutely.
Kennedy.
We've got a few comments there, Rash. Do you want to go through some?
Well, I'm just putting them through, but there's a lot of comments about Kennedy. Like, is he? Do we think he's going to get a game?
Well, he's another one that you left out of the side. Kennedy, has he been out for too long now, Brownie, to come straight into a final?
Yes. No.
Do you think he's cost himself a spot in the team unless there's injuries?
Yeah, I think that's the only way that Kennedy's ever going to get a bloody another look in, to be honest with you. I think someone like Hewitt or Chair has got to be really badly injured for him to actually get the opportunity. I mean, the other thing is too, don't forget, Kennedy hasn't got the flexibility as what some of these other players have, that you can rotate through different positions on the ground. So that's the reason why, you know, Boyd and Kennedy. I mean, you can't throw Boyd forward. You couldn't throw Kennedy in the back line to lock anyone down. His ability to be able to do that.
They did try Kennedy on the halfback flank there for a couple of weeks like early in the season. That was a terrible decision.
Yeah, and failed.
He's never played there in his life. But anyway,
yeah. So, as I said, my side's is subjective to anybody that would like to criticise it. So, yeah.
But the good, isn't it? I would have thought that the good thing in all of this is have a look at the dilemma we've got. We've got so many players to choose from that can come into that team. I mean, you can't fit 30 players into 23. So 6 or 7 of them have got to miss out, don't they? Absolutely. Even Silvani hasn't been mentioned. If he was fit, for example, apparently he's avoided structural damage to his knee, so he could be another player that comes in if there's a role to play. But no one's even mentioned him.
The other thing is too, guys, just don't forget this, right? And I've been saying this for a long time. When you go into a final, firstly, you need 13 or 14 contributors on the day. And secondly, you need those lesser known, not big names, that have got to do all the 1%ers and all the hard yards and all the hard work, you know, the Smothers, the Shepherds, you know, the Crumbs, all of this sort of thing are the things that are going to win your finals football.
Mm. Indeed. I'll just quickly, Rash, sorry.
Go ahead, mate. You go.
Were there any other comments about Brownie's selections that we should put up?
I just wanted to put this comment up, and I've been putting them up as Brownie was talking.
Okay.
But I think this is a good one. Heaney take Cripps last game. I think that's a interesting one, whether or not Sydney go with that again. And what is that implications for us? I mean, they'll lose firepower, but we lose, you know, the ball magnet.
That game was played at Sydney, and completely different animal to what it is on the MCG. Heaney, whilst he's got legs, he wouldn't be able to keep up with Cripps. I think Cripps has got a bigger tank, and I think, and interestingly enough, he's going in with a couple of either cracked ribs or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see whether he gets tested out. The other night at training, they showed some one-on-one, and this is where Pitnet and Kennedy were each other. But Cripps seemed to be moving pretty freely. But interestingly enough, it didn't show any footage of him in and around where there's any hard contests and things like that. So I would suspect that Sydney will probably test him out a little bit with
trying to protect those ribs. Probably trying to protect those ribs that caused him to miss the GWS game, I'd say.
Well, Yates and Dermy, mate.
Who can ever forget the 1989 grand final? Yeah. Well, I'm sure that they'll test him out in that sense. Yeah, that's for sure. I'll just quickly go through my preferred team for the elimination final. And I've got to add here, Joe gave us his team after I sent him mine. And he went with the exact same 18 players that are starting on the field in exactly the same positions as me. The only difference was that he had a few different ones on the interchange bench. But anyway, I'll go through them. So this is not just mine, but also Joe's starting 18 on the field. The back line is Kemp, Wiedering, and Newman. The half-back line is Sard, McGovern, and Doherty. The centre line is Akers on one wing, Cripps in the middle, and Sam Walsh on the wing. The half-forward line is Martin, Charlie Curnow, and Owies. The forward line is Motlop, Mackay at full forward and DeConning in a forward flank. In a forward pocket, I should say.
It's very tall.
The followers are Pitnet and Hewitt. Rover is Chera. The interchange. Now, I had Hollands, Marchbank, Fisher and Dow with Cunningham as my sub. Whereas Joe went for Dow, Fisher. So there's two of the same player that he's got. But he had two other interchange players. Silvani he brought in and Cunningham. And he left out Hollands. He made Hollands the sub. So they're the only differences between Joe's team and my team. I went for the interchange Hollands, Marchbank, Fisher and Dow with Cunningham as the sub. Joe went for Dow, Fisher, Silvani and Cunningham with Hollands as the sub. So I'll be interested to hear what people have to say about that starting lineup.
Did you have Cottrell in there? Because someone's put a comment.
No, I left. Look, there was probably, as I said, 6 or 7 that missed out. And I just felt that with Walsh coming back, unfortunately, Cottrell loses his spot on the wing. Chincotta is left out. As I've said, Cunningham was left out and made the sub. Silvani misses out. Boyd misses out. What's that?
Fogarty's also missed out.
Fogarty's another one that's been dropped and misses out. So you can't play them all. Sooner or later, you've just got to make the hard decision and leave some of them out. So that was the strongest team that I could come up with. I thought that was as close to the strongest side we would be able to field on the day.
One of the things that I did with my side was to make sure that I could cover both ends of the ground. If there was an issue in the back line, I could cover that. If there was an issue in the midfield, I could cover that. And if there was an issue in forward, I can cover that. So that was one of the things that I actually went around with selecting the players that I selected. Interestingly enough, guys, I think that this will be a real test. Now, when I say it's a real test, he's coming up, Voss is coming up against a really good coach in Sydney. And I think that, they've had the experience going in. This will be a real test for our coaching staff. I think our coaching staff are going to have to be right on the ball. I don't think there'll be any opportunities for, letting things get away from you. We definitely have to start well, because if you don't start well in a final, scoreboard pressure is everything.
It can make you fumble, it can make you drop marks, and it can make you miss kick, and all of that implied pressure and real pressure, really, scoreboard pressure.
Well, one of the things that we haven't been doing well in the last 3 or 4 weeks is controlling the corridor, and we particularly more so against Gold Coast. We had a horrible one against GWS. I mean, they completely destroyed us through the middle. Melbourne, we had bits and pieces through there, but realistically, that's an area of our game that we've got to really tighten up to make sure that we take advantage of our scoring opportunities moving forward. Now, it was interesting, wasn't it? Against GWS, as soon as Charlie got the medal around his neck, that was just about it. It was all packed up, ready to go home.
Put the cue in the rack, you reckon, at half time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this week he's got to be switched on. He's got to be a target. He's got to be a weapon. Obviously we will have one opinion. The match committee and their selection committee will have another opinion on how the side's going to line up and who's going to be on who and which players are going to be tagged, which ones aren't going to be tagged. So it'll be interesting to see what they're doing. Having said all that, I think that I shall select Carlton to win the game. I reckon that they'll do it in about 15 to 18 points. I reckon that they can actually get up. But as I said, Sydney have got experience on their side, and they've got the ability to be able to lock it down. So, Carlton for mine, about 15 to 18 points.
All right, 2.5 to 3 goals. I'll ask you, Rash, before I give you my view on all of this. And I want to ask Brownie about a few of the opposition's players shortly. But
Sure.
what do you think, Rash? What's your prediction for the big game?
I actually think we'll cruise it. I actually think it'll be 5 goals, 5-6 goals. I think we're too tough and contested. My only concern is a turnover where we get caught out. But I don't think. I reckon we've got Sydney matched. To be honest, I think with the fit Cripps, I think we'll be fine.
Well, I actually think that they play a lot better when Buddy Franklin's not on the side. I've been saying that for 2 years, in fact. It's a big call, I know, but I just have always felt that they've been a bit conscious of him whenever he's up there in that full forward line. And I think a lot of the other players tend to sort of go into their shells a bit and sort of not get in Buddy's way when he was in the side. But I think Sydney are now that he's announced his retirement and he's gone, I think that they can now breathe some fresh air. And a lot of these other players are going to probably take the next step. Players like Amati, he's a very exciting young talent at full forward. McLean, number 2. I'll get your views on those 2 key forwards, Brownie, seeing that you were a full forward in a premiership side. And I'm very impressed with their All-Australian in Goulden, Errol Goulden, number 21. He's just an absolute gun. And Blakey as well was, I think, in the squad of 44 for the All-Australian, number 22. He's had a fantastic year. And, of course, you can't underestimate Rampy down in the back line. So I think they've got a pretty decent spine. And I think they've got a lot more experience in finals compared to the majority of our players. In fact, I don't know how many of our recruits that we got have actually played in finals or how many finals. But I think at the most you'll find that the 2 former Sydney players, in fact, Nick Newman and George Hewitt, may have had a couple of games in the finals each. I'm not really sure. And the other 2 are from Fremantle, Blake Acres and Adam Chera. So I would have thought that they would have played in at least 1 or 2 finals each as well. But other than those 4 players who are recruits that we've had traded in, I mean, the rest of our squads had 0. I think only maybe Sam Doherty in his first year at Brisbane or something, maybe. Before he came to Carlton. But, geez, that was a good decade ago. So I would think that the vast majority of our players will be playing in their first final. Now, hopefully they don't get overawed by the occasion, but Sydney have a lot of experience in finals. They had their backsides kicked, as you mentioned, their Brownie in the grand final. They'll be keen to atone for that. So, yes, even though they're coming down to Melbourne, it'll be on our home turf. They do play well at the MCG. They knocked off Melbourne there last year in a qualifying final. So, they're not to be underestimated. And certainly what you said, our coaching staff have to be right on the ball. John Longmire, I mean, you've got to say he's now one of the best coaches of all time. I know he's got the 1 premiership, but he's consistently had Sydney competing in finals for the vast majority of his I think he's been there now 12 years. So he'll have something up his sleeve, I'm sure. And having said all that, I think that the crowd will make a very big difference for us. I think there'll be a really huge Carlton dominant crowd on Friday night that will certainly be, cheering and encouraging our players at every opportunity, every time they do something well. Every time they get a goal, every time they take a big mark, or even just the pressure acts, putting on good tackles and shepherds and smothers and all that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that can really lift a team. So I think that will make a huge difference on Friday night. And in a very close game, I think Carlton will get up by 11 points.
The other thing to consider here too, guys, is that there is no second chance here. This is do or die. There's no backup next week. So the Carlton players have got to understand what the significance of what this means. And we could go through all of this and get to this particular game, and then either put a poor performance in or just put or just try and bloody well get through. And as a result of that, you could lose the game and be in a situation where everyone turns around and says, oh, yeah, but they had a pretty good... No, they didn't. No. You're only as good as your last game. In your last game, if you lose the last game, then you're only as good as that.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I really think that where this is going to be interesting is that you mentioned Blakey and you also mentioned Goulden. Goulden's been playing on a wing, I think, from memory this year. So it'll either be Akers or it'll be Walsh that'll probably get that job on him. Now, if they play wide, they're going to get towed up. If they don't play wide and they take it out of the game and then try and pick up some possessions themselves, that could be good. Blakey is notorious for running off backline. So, and
he did that at the SCG earlier this year when they beat us. Remember that run that he had right through the middle of the ground? He took them on and just about ran like a lizard right through the middle of the ground.
So, in fact, one of our small forwards is going to have to probably sacrifice his own game to try and stop Blakey from actually running up the ground and creating opportunities further afield. Now, you also mentioned there was also mention about Heaney on Cripps. Now, let's get that in perspective. At the time, Cripps was bloody awful, and Heaney was in reasonable form, and it was at the SCG, which meant that it's not a big ground, etc., etc. So this is something that's going to come into it. You were asking me about something else about a couple of the other players, Vince. Who was it that you were wanting to?
The two key position players. In fact, when you look at all of their forward line, I was specifically asking about Amati, 36. And McLean, Hayden McLean, number 2. They're the two tall boys that they've got up there, as well as Logan McDonald, number 6. He can also take a pretty high mark. And Heaney himself, while not being overly tall, as we know, he can take a high-flying mark. And Chad Warner, I think, is a really important player for them, number 1.
Well, he plays out of the middle, Warner. So he's going to be the key. He'll be the one that actually gets the clearances out of the middle and stuff like that.
And Mills is another one who's really hit top form lately.
Sorry, who was that?
Mills, Callum Mills.
Oh, yeah, Callum Mills, yeah. Now, the one that you mentioned, Amati, before, last week against Melbourne, the week before, Amati was actually put onto May to try and nullify May as more of a defensive player than he was an attacking forward. So what they were trying to do is that they were trying to cut their attacking backman down so that they could try and create more scoring through other opportunities and use him as more of a nullifier than actually as an
defensive forward, I think they call it, don't they?
Correct. And that's going to be really that's going to be really important for us too. If there's ever a time when we've got to have stoppages in our forward 50, it is this week against Sydney, because what we need to do is we need to be able to attack going forward, but also defend coming out. And it's going to be
lock the ball in. We need to lock the ball into that forward 50 and not let them take it out of defence nice and easily like they're probably used to doing. We've got to work hard in our forward line to keep that ball within the forward 50 zone.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Warner before, and a couple of other guys that Callum Mills and these guys that have come into their own of recent times. But our guys, Walsh, Shearer, Hewitt, all these guys, they've got to be prepared to work bloody hard both ways. They've got to be working hard into the back line. They've got to be working hard into the forward line to create some scoring opportunities. We can't be relying upon our bloody Coleman medalist to kick goals. Whilst I
felt the last 2 matches, correct me, sorry to interrupt you there for a second, but I have felt in the last 2 matches that we've played that we've really relied heavily on Charlie to just turn it on. Now, he did that against the Gold Coast, literally after being, 7 goals behind at one stage. It might have even been, it was about 40 points, I think it was. After being 40 points behind against the Gold Coast, he just decided that's it. I've got to do something, and he decided to turn it on. Kicked 4 goals in the one quarter there in the second quarter,
and 2 involvements.
Had another hand in it. Had a hand in 2 more, and all of a sudden, made the game his own, and even saved it for us late in the match, going down to defence. And against GWS, it seemed like the same thing. It was the Charlie show. Got his Coleman medal, and then everyone put the cue in the rack, as you said. But it was almost like the rest of the team was waiting for him to turn it on again if we were going to win that match. I think there's been a little bit of a heavy reliance on that sort of thing to happen in the last 2 matches. Is that being a bit harsh on the team? Or,
no, absolutely not. Longmire he'll have a plan for that. Obviously, he'll have a plan for it. Now, Harry hasn't enthused me at all since he's come back. He certainly hasn't. He hasn't shown me that he's capable of stepping up into this role. So we've got to look at other avenues going forward to make sure that we've got an opportunity to score. And, when you become too heavily reliant on someone like a Charlie Curnow, what tends to happen is that your focus changes. You're looking for that body rather than who's in the best possible position. Not who's your main forward, but who's in the best possible position to take advantage of a scoring opportunity. So, and let's be honest. Let's be totally honest here. Whilst Charlie's been exceptional all year and he's won the Coleman medal, et cetera, one of the things that is a real blight on his game, if you want to call it, is his defensive pressure in the forward line has been excused by the fact that he's kicked goals, right?
Yeah.
But there's no point in your job as a key forward is to score goals, but it's also to make sure that your opponent doesn't become an effective player going forward for them.
Yeah.
So
I think correct me if I'm wrong, what you're alluding to here is at the end of a match, you'd be lucky to get more than 1 tackle against Charlie's name. Is that what you're saying? And quite often 0.
Absolutely.
I've noticed that too in the last few games. Yeah.
Well, I hope that he turns that around. I hope that he gets into a position where he's actually, showing whilst he's leading and showing maturity moving forward, scoring. He's not all around game. He's not the complete footballer when it comes to making sure that his opponent doesn't create opportunities, and the tackling side of thing, the defensive pressure, that's got to be there as well. So it's a twofold thing. It's the backman's game. The backman's game is to stop your opponent from scoring, but it's also your job to then create something down the ground. The forward's job is to score goals and make sure your defensive game is there to prevent him or your opponent from having opportunities or creating opportunities up the ground. So,
and of course, you can speak with authority on this because you often went from playing full forward to then being swung onto full back, and you could see these lazy full forwards not wanting to chase and not wanting to tackle, and you used to run off them and go for a bit of a gallop up the ground and get up to centre half forward and then kick it into the forward line, Browning.
I must admit, when you say I went for a gallop up at the ground, it was more like it was a thump up the ground. It wasn't.
We didn't have to put on the baby elephant walk, did we? In the background.
The guys that I was playing against, guys like Dench, Larkey, McCormick.
They were the full backs when you were playing full forward,
Yeah, all those guys that back in the old days, they were renowned for being able to run off and create something up the ground.
My word, they were. That's one of the reasons they were great full backs, because they used to not only beat their full forward, but literally run off them and go for a bit of a sprint up the ground and boot the ball into the forward line. And they were, renowned for doing that, weren't they? The David Denches and the Peter McCormacks and Peter Knightses and all these sorts of players.
Yeah, well, even our own which I believe should have been the fullback of the century, and we can debate that if you like.
Yeah, Jeff Southby, no doubt.
He was also renowned for that as well. He was always being able to create up the ground, and his ability to be able to read the ball. Now, my job as a forward was to make sure that I stopped my opponent from doing that. Then if I scored some goals, then it's a bonus. So I've done my job well and truly. So it was to nullify him, but also to create an opportunity. Now, if I couldn't mark it and score goals, then all I had to do was just bring it to the ground, and we'd have the mosquito fleet, come through.
Yeah, to rove off you. Yeah. Okay.
Boys, can I just put a comment here, if you don't mind? There's a question regarding the Ramadan warrior, Saad.
The Ramadan warrior, Adam Saad. Yes.
Just have a look at the question and
Saad will need to play more of a role, as in impose himself on the wing more. What's your opinion regarding Saad? Very good question from, is it L? I think it's LR, isn't it? Or is it A1? I'm not really sure.
ALR. Personally, I don't think Saad can go past the wing. I just don't think he can. I don't think he's creative enough going into the forward line. He's, on occasions he's one trick pony. He swings out on the left foot, and as a hit up target and as a player moving forward and back, I think Saad's only one dimensional. I think he only goes one way, which is forward, not back. So if you have him in the forward line, I don't think he's going to be able to be as creative as what he would be if he was coming straight forward from the back line. So, no.
The knock on him last year was that while he had an attacking flair, that he wasn't defensive enough in his game. Now, do you think he's improved on that this year? Because I think he's done a lot better defensively this year than previous years.
I think what he's done is that in previous years he was sucked up the ground too easily, and as a result of that he was caught between
and leaving his man,
and he's had to work hard to try and get back on occasions, and he's given away silly free kicks by being able to try and create a contest but out of position. I think he's better reading where that is now, and his stoppage work is better than what it had been. Not brilliant, but better. So this is where I've got a question mark over McGovern. I think he's too loose as a backman. I think he's...
I totally agree on McGovern. Totally agree on McGovern.
Oh, there's no doubt. They even showed some footage last week on one of the Foxtel shows how McGovern is not accountable as accountable as he should be for his man. Often plays the zone, but in doing so leaves his man run up the ground and get the ball and create opportunities where the forward line ends up kicking a goal. His own man might not kick the goal, but he gets involved in a passage of play that results in a goal.
Yeah.
So, you're right. McGovern needs to tighten up in that respect. I noticed one of our other viewers made a comment that I wanted to get your reaction to, Brownie, and he said this business about finals experiences. We were talking about how Sydney's got a hell of a lot more finals experience than our team. And he, I think, alluded to something along the lines of it being overrated, or I think it might have been Lou. Was it Lou?
Let me just have a look.
Lou.
I've got one comment from Petra. That was a response.
Basically, what's your opinion on that, Brownie? That now you've played the game at the highest level. You've played in finals and grand finals. Do you think it's underestimated? Or overestimated? In the opinion of Lou, it was overestimated how much having finals experience means.
No, look, it's interesting because there are certain players that can handle the finals pressure, and then there are certain players that can't. I've known of players that come into a game, particularly in a final, and be an absolute nervous wreck, and to the point of actually throwing up before they actually go out on the ground. And yet I've seen other players that are cool, calm and collected, have got their thoughts together. And it's interesting when you're in the club rooms and you're actually preparing for a final, you've got people that's got nervous energy and you've got people that have got calm energy. And the big thing is there that if you can get a balance between the two, it's more beneficial to the side than what it is you can't have 18 nutcases running around revving everybody up, and you can't have 18 players all sitting there with headphones on and just bloody well coolly and calmly, reading the paper or something like that. So there's always, and even when we were playing, the psychological side of things is interesting. I mean, we had a guy by the name of Rudy Webster who was a well-known psychologist in the sporting field in Melbourne, and Rudy used to know who to pull aside and be able to have a yak to him and who just to let go. He didn't come anywhere near me because I was a fruitcake. But with some guys that were their approach was different. I mean, no one went anywhere near Dooley. He just did his own thing. And there were some players that were just that nervous and worried about themselves that Rudy used to get into their head and just bloody well calm them down and get them into the right headspace so that they could go out and actually play. One of the guys that actually was a bit like that was a guy by the name of Peter Francis. We mentioned him before. He had that nervous energy, but it because he was introverted in himself. That used to tear him up a little bit. So, that calming influence was able to settle things down. Where, as I said, I was tearing the joint up, and half the time I think I played the game before I even hit the ground. But so going into a finals campaign, when you're actually going in with experience under the belt, it's a lot easier for you to recognise the signs in other players and be able to either work on the weaknesses and embrace the strengths of those players, so that you can actually have them in the correct mindset when they actually hit the ground. So,
but doesn't it dissipate after a while? So what I'm saying is, I mean, they don't have experience, but they get in and get nervous. They might lose a couple of goals, but if they keep it steady, I mean, this is where the advantage could be with a team that's had finals. And then it dissipates after, first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then it's a game. Or does it still continue on? That's the point.
Oh, look, I think if the game is very tight, I think that people, particularly in a do and die situation, I mean, am I going to make a mistake? I always had the opinion that if you're going to make a mistake, make a bloody good one, and make sure it's a fair income one and not a half-hearted one. Because at the end of the day, if it's half-hearted and it looks poor, then you look like a dickhead. But if you're going in full pelt, you make a mistake and it costs you or something like that, well, at least you had a go. You were in a situation where 9 times out of 10, if you attack it full on, it'll probably go your way.
I imagine that this psychologist or psychiatrist, whoever it was that you had in the players' rooms, must have gotten to know each of the players and whether they were extrovert, introvert, someone who was, highly strung or someone who was pretty chilled out and relaxed. Because different things work for different people. Even humour, I imagine even just getting some blokes to relax is to just, tell a funny gag or something, bring up something funny, or, that might help them to relax, for example.
Absolutely. Sorry.
No, you go. I cut you out.
No. I agree with you, Vince. Rudy was an excellent exponent of being able to get into the psyche of the players and be able to understand who was the ones that he had to work on and who's the ones he didn't work on. It's interesting. I mean, I played all my footy in junior level and obviously up through the ranks and stuff like that. But I was always very vocal. I was always someone that was able to rev people up and get into a few people and stuff like that. Sometimes to my own detriment, really, because, whilst I'm running around like a madman, bloody well yelling my guts out and things like that, some of the times it was to my detriment and I didn't play some games all that well, I must admit. But, if if you're that type of person that revs everybody up and you go out and have a reasonable day, you come off the ground pretty stoked and pumped, I can assure you.
I imagine.
Can I make just a point, just on the psychological part, obviously, because I work in the space too. I think also, if we could look at it, it's all about perception, perspective, and how each person deals with it on the day. But I reckon you'll be seeing players like Cripps, Wiedering, Doherty. They'll be licking at the lips. They'll want to absolute tear it apart. Now, I understand. And then the other thing is, because we're a big club, I think that we're fortunate enough to play in these big games. That Melbourne game is a big game. Collingwood game was a big game. So I know it's different than finals, but I don't know. I have the faith. I think they'll be okay.
Look, I share some of your optimism, Rash, but one of the things that is different is that finals football is definitely different to home and away football. Home and away football is the next week. Finals football, particularly if you're going into an elimination final.
Make or break.
Make or break, yeah. I mean, the second semi-final out at Arctic Park when we were playing against North Melbourne, we had the double chance. But the other thing is that we wanted that week off. We wanted to be in a situation where and that was a different setup to what it is now, of course. But that game, I don't think at any stage we even looked like losing that game. I thought we had it pretty well under control, even though the score wasn't all that flattering for the game itself. But it was a game that was tense, but at no stage can I say that we were probably in danger of losing the game.
Boys.
Yes, well, back then it was a final five back in the late 70s, and Carlton certainly did account for North Melbourne in the second semi-final over there in Waverley, and a certain Mr. P. Brown was a significant contributor to the Carlton cause that day, I can assure you.
Just in the right place at the right time.
No, don't give me that right place and the right time rubbish. You played a good game, Brownie, and
Boy,
thoroughly deserved your spot at full forward in the 1979 Premiership team. Anyway, we must move on.
Yep.
So I thought we'd address that question of finals experience and get your thoughts on whether it really does make a difference to have the finals experience under your belt, like a lot of the Sydney players will have, versus our guys who largely don't have the finals experience. So do you think they're at an advantage having played so many finals in recent years as opposed to us, or do they go in with no advantage at all?
Well, it's two-sided sword, if you ask me. I mean, sometimes going into a final with experience can also be counterintuitive. It can be also against you, and your enthusiasm in your youth can shine through, and the hunger from the opposition side can also have an effect on how that affects the other side that may have a little bit more experience. I only made comment of it purely and simply because it's just one of those factors of which our coaching staff and obviously our support staff must be aware of, so that we can then take matters to counter that, so that we can then go about our business. So that was the only reason why I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I just thought it was something worth considering.
Yep. Okay. Let's move on, Rash.
Let's move on. Just as we get close to wrapping up, there is some. Do you want to go through the final standings of the your votes for the year? You want to mention that, or no need? Just seeing what's next on our agenda as we wrap up.
3-2-1 voting that we've conducted up until now in the first 24 rounds. Of course, one of those was a bye for us, so 23 matches played. What was the end wash up for the home and away season? We will continue with this. For as many finals as we play. So it's not finished up yet, but this is certainly the standings for the home and away season. So if we were doing a Brownlow, if you like, Brownie, this is how it would finish up for our 3-2-1, because our 3-2-1 is on Carlton players only, of course.
Of course. Now, obviously, Chera and Walsh had a number of weeks out, so that was obviously had an effect on the final result so far. you said that Chera has had an outstanding year, and he has. Walsh was out with injury and then came in and then had a real purple patch. The bloke that's actually been, doing his work week in, week out, which is Doherty, he's and Newman for that matter. Sorry. So that top five, as far as I can see, have been head and shoulders above all other players that have played with Carlton this year. So particularly their consistency. And as you say, Charlie, obviously that is reflective of his Coleman medal. And he sits top of the table only by a small margin to Chera. A little bit of way is Walsh and then Doherty and Newman. So, I think that's fairly fitting for how our season's gone.
Yeah, apart from the standout forward in the team, obviously, and the standout forward in the competition, we've got two midfielders in Chera and Walsh, and two defenders, largely defenders, in Doherty and Newman. And then it really does fall away after that. If you notice, Newman's on 40 and then it drops away another 15 votes to Cripps on 25. So I think that there's a good cross-section there between forwards, mids and defenders, but certainly the top five, our strength for most of the year has come from consistency in the middle from Chera and Walsh and consistency in defence from Doherty and Newman. And obviously Charlie's been the one consistent forward all year, kicking 77 goals. Or was it 77 or 78? Might have been 78 goals in the end.
78. Interestingly enough, those top five, they're the ones that have got to perform this week against the Swans. They're the ones that are going to be our key movers and shakers. I mean, obviously, Wiedering down back, he's going to be important, but these other guys in the centre and obviously our key forward and a couple of our defenders, I think that's going to be a real indicative snapshot of how our game's going to go on Friday night.
Can you see any circumstances by which Carlton blows Sydney off the park on Friday night? Because some people are of the opinion that we're just going to blow them away and absolutely dominate and literally kick them off the park. Can you see that in any way, shape or form?
Well, I think you'd find that if those people are fair income supporters and have actually looked at the games throughout the year, they would see that, Carlton, whilst they have played well, you can't really say that we've absolutely blown sides to pieces. I mean, obviously, with the exception of
win one stage where we even knocked out, I think, Port Adelaide by 50 points and a few other decent sides by a decent margin as well. I think Collingwood got a good touching up, and so did St Kilda.
Yeah,
not necessarily by 10 goals, but I think a lot of people are looking at Sydney as being the lucky side to get in the 8, if you like, the weakest link in the 8, and maybe if we get on top of them early and get a really decent lead by quarter time and half time, we might actually blow them off the park in the second half.
Don't discount the Sydney mob. You can't take them lightly. I mean, any games you can't take lightly, but Sydney is one that you cannot take lightly, and if you take them lightly, to your bloody own detriment.
Yeah, well, they've still got experienced players like their captain in Parker and guys like that and Rampy down in the back line that certainly give them a lot of stability. Look, I don't think it'll be easy for us, but I do think that with the crowd behind us, home final, and pretty much a full strength side to choose from, I think that's going to be a key factor, is that we actually have pretty much an entire list to choose from. If you take out the season-long injury to Zach Williams, you've almost got everyone else available. I can't think of another player, maybe Silvani, and it's debatable as to whether he would have got in anyway. But other than Zach Williams, I think you'll find that we're pretty much full strength.
Yep.
It's important.
Yep. Boys,
3-2-1 standings after 23 rounds. We will continue to do votes after each Carlton final. Hopefully we've got more than just the one final to give votes for. But we'll do that again next Sunday night when we review the Carlton versus Sydney final.
Yep.
Let's go, Rash. What are we up to next?
Well, I'm just going to show you the final tipping numbers that you had for the year.
I think we'll have to leave it at this.
Well, it is like Joseph wins. Joe.
Yeah. Well, we know what Joe's tactics are. He's got one tip in front of Brownie, so we always ask Brownie who he's going for, and then he tips the same team.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, now hang on, you've jumped ahead. Haven't you got the Omen Bet of the Week introduction there?
Let me just check. No.
Oh, hang on, boys. Hang on. There is one other little one that I'd like to throw in.
You've got Brownie points for the week. Have we got the Brownie points video, please?
Oh yeah, I can do that. That's no problem.
Let's have Brownie points for the week, because I know we haven't got a game, but Brownie has apparently got someone who he wants to make the recipient of his Brownie points this week. So let's go.
Right.
Beautiful kick from Brown. It's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
Magnificent.
His football boot stops in the back of David Dench's back. I think David Dench has still got the indentations in his back ever since. Hasn't been able to get him.
Yeah.
So who are we going to give Brownie points to this week, and why, seeing we haven't got a game to review?
Well, yeah, so it's a bit controversial, but I'm going to throw it out there. My Brownie points this week goes to Joe Luzza. Now, Joe and unfortunately his beautiful partner are struggling with some medical issues, particularly his partner. And my Brownie points go out to Joe this week. We're thinking of him, and he's been an intricate part of our show all year, with all due respect to Rash himself. But Joe's been a part of our little podcast for the 23 weeks. We're thinking of you, Joe. We know that it's a really difficult time for you. So take all of our best wishes, and hopefully things are on the up for you. And I wish you all the very best. And I think that comes from both Vince and Rash as well, and probably Rocco and all the boys from Jumper Punch. But Brownie points to Joe Lutzer this week for the situation he's going through. So
Here. I won't need to add to that. Very well said, Brownie.
All right.
You're in our thoughts, and we're in your prayers, and you're in our prayers, and so is your partner. More importantly, she'll be going through a pretty tough time in the next few weeks and months ahead. All right. Now, Rash,
talk to me.
You've done such a wonderful job there so far tonight. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Now, have you got the intro for our most popular segment on the show, which is my Omen Bet of the Week, Big Vincenzo's Omen Bet of the Week?
Wait, hold on. Let's check. No, I don't. Oh, yes, I do. Ready?
All right. Let's have it on. Well done, Rash. You see, it's not that hard, is it? You just press the button and up it comes. Now we can review what the bet was last week. And unfortunately for us, our bet last week didn't even have a chance of coming off, because it was declared a no race due to a fall during the middle of the race.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, they called the race off.
There you go.
And all that happens is we got our money back on Destiny Stride, number one. Now, I hope that's not an omen that Carlton's big stride to hopefully Premiership destiny has all of a sudden taken an unexpected turn. This was declared a race, so I'm certainly hoping that that's no omen for us. So let's hope this week's Omen Bet has a bit more success. And it is tomorrow at Bankstown in New South Wales. Bankstown Harness. Monday, the 4th of September, which is my lovely partner Tanya's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, sweetheart.
A card, so you don't have to remind me to do that.
Yes, well, happy birthday to Tanya. And I suspect that you have those big bunch of roses for her, do you, Vince, or what?
Now, Brownie, shut your mouth now, all right? That's enough. I said I already bought her a gift. Now I've got to go out and buy some flowers as a result of that. Anyway, I'll tell you one thing she does is she brings out the best in me. So that's why I thought we'd go to Bankstown Harness, and hopefully we'll see the best of Carlton on Friday night as well.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason for the Omen bet. Race 4, number 8, the best of you, and we're certainly seeing the best of Brownie tonight and the best of Rash as well as our host and chief organiser up there. Best of you, number 8, the one right down the bottom there, is going to have to come off the second line over the short distance of 1,740 metres, but in very good form, and I think it'll give it a big shake. So we're going to put $11 for the win, seeing our balance is 61, and there it is. Thanks very much, Rash. Our balance is 61, so we'll put $11 on it, and if it doesn't get up, we'll still have 50 in the account. All right.
Perfect.
Hopefully turn $11 into 25 or 35 or something like that. I'm not sure what the odds will be, but we always go off the tote. Thank you, Lana. Happy birthday from Lana. And don't forget to like and share, and please subscribe. Just press that little subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, especially on the Jumper Punch channel. You, of course, can also become a member if you wish, a member of the Jumper Punch, where there's 3 different types of memberships to choose from. They all give you additional benefits as you go up in monthly contribution. But the best part about being a member of the Jumper Punch is that you will get 25% off your total meal when you go into Schnitz at Northlands.
No, Northland.
Northlands. That's how they say it in the northern suburbs. It's a bit saying reservoir instead of reservoir. Anyway, so all our friends there at Schnitz in Northland are very kind and giving all of our subscribers 25% off if they become a member of the Jumper Punch. Also, join us on Facebook at Blue Sunday. And, please join our channel.
All right, guys.
And I'm a Mars member. Well, that's great. She's obviously getting 25% off every time she goes into Schnitz at Northland. Fantastic, Lana. All righty. Thanks.
All right.
Grant reckons we've had a great show. Thanks very much for that. We appreciate that. Now, Rash, we have some shows to promote because, of course, being part of the Jumper Punch channel, it's not just about Blue Sunday every Sunday night. It's also about some other shows that come up on the channel. The first one we should mention is the Jumper Punch itself. Now, of course, the Jumper Punch show, strangely enough, Brownie, is not actually broadcast on the Jumper Punch channel. Did you know that? It's actually a Blue Abroad channel. So if you're going onto YouTube, go onto Blue Abroad and you'll find the Jumper Punch guys on that every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. The show normally lasts somewhere between 3 and 3.5 hours. I'm not sure how they end up filling in 3 and 3.5 hours, but they do. They've got lots of segments, and they certainly do dissect the game in great detail. So it's unmissable watching every week, Tuesday night at 7. Then, of course, on Wednesday night, you've got a bit of variety. You've got Forever Rivals. That's FOUR, meaning Forever Rivals. There's 4 of them, of course. Carlton, Collingwood, Richmond and Essendon. And all of the boys that represent each of those clubs, including Rocco representing Carlton, of course. And, of course, his great mate, Magpie Manny, representing Collingwood. Bomber Mark, who represents Essendon. And, of course, Tiger Queenie, who represents Richmond. So I suppose it's season over for Essendon and Richmond, but they'll still make up part of the show and give us their views on what's going on with the other finals. Isn't it strange how the 2 biggest mouths on that show are both their teams are playing finals. Rocco with Carlton and Magpie Manny with Collingwood.
I seriously feel sorry for him.
Would play each other in a final, whether it be a semi-final in week 2 or whether it be the grand final in week 4. Wouldn't it be fantastic to have a Carlton-Collingwood finals? If nothing else, just to see Rocco and Manny going at each other.
No, it's not even like that, Vince. It's like, seriously, it's abuse. Rocco abuses him. I feel sorry for him.
Yes.
All right, guys. I'm going to go.
Really goes out for Manny.
All right.
Okay, that's at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. Of course, then after that, at 8:30, we've got Legends of the Jumper Punch. That's, of course, the interview series that I do with Rocco every week. Guess who we've got this week, Brownie?
Who?
1987 Premiership player. Played in the back pocket. Can you think of who it might be?
Was it Des English?
No. Des English. Had played his last game of football for Carlton in 1986 in the grand final, the losing grand final to Hawthorn. In fact, he told us in an interview we did with him is that while it brought about his cancer diagnosis brought about a premature end to his career, he's very grateful to the last game he ever played, even though it was a losing grand final. Was also in the same final game as Bruce Doull and Mark McClure. This guy basically took his position at the back pocket as a result. So he got his opportunity to some degree because of Desi retiring. But it's Michael
on the comments?
Mick Kennedy, number 43. Really good back pocket. And he's a terrific guy. And he's up in that Ballarat area, and he's been a teacher and a school principal up there for decades. And really shared a lot of great stories with us. And it's really good viewing this Wednesday night at 8:30. Premiership player in 1987, Michael Kennedy. So that's coming up on the Jumper Punch channel. And, of course, next Sunday night, after we've played the Sydney Swans on the Friday night, on Sunday night at 7:30, we're back here on Blue Sunday. We're not sure whether it's with Joe or whether it's with Rash or whether it's with anyone else. But you and I, Brownie, will be here, won't we?
We will.
Game. And we, again, invite your participation as our viewers on the night. So let's hope that our predictions of a Carlton victory come true. Rash, is there anything else you'd like to say before I thank you?
I just want to say the other shows on Blue Abroad also are great. I've been watching always Blues Brothers. They're awesome. If you haven't watched it, go watch that also. Yep. But it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Happy to fill in. Go Blues from me. That's all.
And by the way, Rash, can I say bon voyage, because I believe you're heading back very shortly back to the sand pit over there in Dubai. Is that right?
Well, it's to be confirmed. It's always like that in the Middle East.
Tell me you were going back.
I'm supposed to be going on the 10th or 11th, and then for a couple of weeks, and then it depends if Carlton make the grand final. I might stay a bit, I'll stay less. But yeah.
Gillan McLaughlin's rung him up and said, listen, we really need you to be the DJ for the grand final. Please accept our $1 million offer. And he's thinking about it.
I need to be back for the Blues just to support. It's too far. Anyway, guys, we've got to wrap it up.
Right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Rash.
Everyone for watching.
Vince.
Yep.
Yeah,
thanks for
our viewers.
joining us again.
See
you next
Brownie,
week.
we love you, man. Legend.
Right. Bye.
Go
Cheers,
Blues.
guys.
Right. Go Blues.
Go Blues.